Hey, y'all.
We are powering through this topic of the systems of power and inequality. So just a quick review. First, we delved into race. Then we talked about ethnicity and religion. Then we spoke about, or we reviewed capitalism and social class. This week, our fourth one, we are looking at gender. And what does that mean when we begin looking at inequality and power? Ooh, buckle up, buckle up, buckle up. Excuse me. So this first article that we are going to read this week, y'all, is entitled Asian American Women and Racialized Femininities. Excuse me, let me do that again. Asian American Women and Racialized Femininities, doing gender across cultural worlds. Wow, 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 wow. So we are exploring gender expectations, gender roles, gender behavior across cultural lines. These two authors are talking about, again, doing gender in this intersectional theory, I guess you could say, and intersectional process. I got to slow down and get my words together, good people. But looking at intersectionality based on social class, race, and gender. And what does that look like for them as Asian women in America? The authors of this particular article, they begin to explore again the expectations of the roles and the behaviors of being Asian with their Asian within their Asian culture and then within their non-Asian culture. Some of the I guess you could say comparison, some of the contrasts in what's expected of them and how they conduct themselves. And what does that mean for them? How do they make sense of that? Now let me ask you, have you ever experienced something similar to needing to define and or redefine the expected behavior that you may have or expected behavior of you based on a role that you may be in that has kind of an intersectional perspective? It can be intersectional based on gender and race. It can be intersectional based on race, social class, based on social class, ethnicity. Have you ever experienced that? Now, I want you to think about your experiences and compare them to some of the things that the authors explore in this article. And as you're exploring those things, I really want you to think about some of the stereotypes that may persist based on the role and the position that you may be functioning in, stereotypes that these authors may have had to address as well. Now, the second article that we're going to be talking about this week is entitled From Transgender to Trans, the ongoing struggle for the inclusion, acceptance, and celebration of identities beyond the binary. So this author, Joelle Ruby Ryan, is looking at and exploring information of moving from transgender identity to trans and what that looks like in combining personal with political. What does that look like? So this author is exploring, again, from an advocacy perspective, not only advocating for LGBTQ, but highlighting that there is power and privilege for some that may fall under what is expected as or accepted as the norm of the LGBTQ community. And then there are some that are still fighting against the oppression. And that is what this author is looking at. This author is advocating for that intersectionality that we begin to explore what that looks like across the board with the LGBT community. So again, being mindful that there are some that may function according to privilege and some within the LGBTQ community who are still being oppressed. And when we speak about being oppressed, now I don't want you to be short-sighted and thinking that that oppression comes with let's say discrimination of employment or discrimination of health benefits. But I want you to go a little bit further, and I need you to think about, again, that advocacy and some of those issues as it even pertains to housing, as it pertains to specifically healthcare. When we talk about going from transgender to trans within the LGBTQ community and that population, there is significant issues and concerns related to healthcare. And what does that look like for those within the trans community? What does it look like, y'all? So we got to think about this. I want you to think about what your privilege looks like, may look like relative to healthcare, and what some of the oppression that may exist for those who are going from transgender to trans within the LGBTQ community. What does healthcare look like for them? All right. So the third article that we are going to talk about, this article is going to be exploring the feminist masculinities and intersectionality. So the title of this article is More Than Men, Latino Feminist Masculinities and Intersectionality. Now, the author of this article is looking at and shares the ideas of what does manhood look like? Ooh, what does manhood look like? Now, there is a supplemental article in the module that explores manhood or masculinity based on sexuality. So I put that in there, and I want you to read that article along with this one, because this author explores three specific issues or three specific areas when exploring what manhood looks like. The first that is defined is, it says that manhood has a relational status. So what does that mean? Manhood has a relational status. So for you, when you are defining manhood or masculinity, is it based on relational interactions that you have had? Is it based on expectations? Is it based on what mass media has said to you? So manhood has a relational status. The second one is that manhood has a set of positive ethical positions. There are positive ethical positions that in those positions, it helps to shape humanity. It helps to get us in a perspective that we're viewing humanity from I guess you could say, a respect for other people. So what does manhood look like for you? The third one that this author talks about, is that manhood has a rejection of elements, or there is a rejection of elements of the hegemonic masculinity, meaning that dominant masculine norm that we've established in our society, especially as it pertains to objectifying women. So what does manhood look like to you? How would you define it? And what is your expectation of manhood? Ooh, this is deep, y'all. Maybe I should say your expectation of masculinity. Ooh, this is deep, and it can't get much deeper, or can it? Ooh, I'm telling y'all, it can. So, excuse me. So this fourth article that we are going to be reading, it is etitled, Keep Your in Check. African American women in the interactive effects of etiquette and emotional labor. Emotional labor, y'all. Emotional labor. So these authors are looking at, and they are examining the negative perceptions that Black women, but specifically that Michelle Obama, that she had began to, they had began to be assigned to her based on her perspective and how she presented herself. So they began looking at the negative stereotypes of the angry Black woman that had been assigned to Michelle Obama. And how did that affect, or how does that affect the way that we define, when I say we, I mean me as a Black woman, how I define my self-worth as prescribed by society, looking at my characteristics. Excuse me. So how do I define my self-worth? These authors, they began to focus on some of the things that become intrusive. that begin to question or cause them to question their own identity as successful Black women. So when we're looking at, again, the whole idea of power based on gender, oh my word, we have a whole valley, a whole level of things that we can explore of, first of all, how are we defining gender? Whoo, that's a big one. How are we defining gender? And then after we define gender, how do we define or identify the expectations for who may be functioning in those roles, the expected behavior? There's a whole lot of reading that we have in this module, y'all. So I have these articles for you to read. There is also going to be another video for you to watch in regards to, or I should say in relationship to our ideas of what gender looks like in society. So please make sure you take an opportunity to watch that video, prepare your thoughts for some open and courageous conversation on the discussion post. Look in the module. There will probably be another assignment posted for this week. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you know how I end this, y'all. Either give me a call on the phone or send me an email. I'm sorry, I had to do it, y'all. I had to do it. All right. I bid you love, peace, and bacon grease. I'll see you on the discussion post.